a colonial-style house in a quiet residential neighborhood in suburban Boston. Melissa Johnson stood by the window, gazing at the light rain that signaled the end of winter. "Mom, look." Michael signed excitedly, making big gestures with his hands. He had just turned 7. With his brown hair and large eyes, his animated expressions made one forget about his hearing impairment. "What is it?" Melissa signed back, looking at the paper her son had spread out. There was a fire truck and a man drawn as a hero. "It's a picture of Dad," Michael proudly signed. "That's wonderful." "It looks just like him," Melissa answered with a smile, gently stroking her son's head. Jason appeared from the kitchen. He had healthy tan skin and closely cropped hair. His body, toned from his physical work as a firefighter, was adorned with a vibrant tattoo that ran from his left arm to his shoulder. Flower and flame motifs intertwined, with the words "honor" and "service" beneath them. On his back were inscribed the names of comrades he had rescued. "What are you looking at?" Jason approached and put his arm around his wife's shoulder. "A portrait of you," Melissa said with a chuckle, showing him their son's drawing. "A portrait of our local hero." Jason smiled bashfully and scooped Michael up. "Thank you, champion," he said while simultaneously signing. In their home, spoken words and sign language blended naturally, creating a comfortable rhythm. Melissa returned to the kitchen to continue preparing breakfast. Family photos adorned the walls. Their wedding day, the day Michael was born, and last summer when the three of them visited the coast of Maine. Every picture radiated their smiles. When Michael was born and they discovered he had a hearing impairment, the couple was momentarily at a loss. But that didn't last long. What this child needs isn't special accommodation. It's love, Jason had said, and they began learning sign language together. Now, Jason even volunteered once a week to teach sign language classes at Michael's school. At the breakfast table, Melissa was checking the mail. Among the bills and advertisements, she found a letter from Barbara. "It's from Mother," Melissa sighed as she opened the envelope. Her mother, who was obsessed with her position in Boston's high society, always worried about appearances. When Melissa decided to marry Jason, an ordinary public school teacher, Barbara had strongly objected. "A man with tattoos," she had said in a tone as if describing a criminal. And when Michael's disability was discovered, she had spoken as if it were something shameful, to have a disabled person in the family line. The letter contained news about her sister Caitlin. Caitlin had grown up heavily influenced by their mother. She was expected to be perfect and always tried to conform to the ideals of high society. Unlike Melissa, she had made it her life's goal to meet her mother's expectations. Caitlin has made it to the final selection for Boston University's elite law program. She truly is the pride of our family. Melissa put down the letter. Since her father's death 10 years ago, her position in the family had become even more of an outsider. Her marriage to a tattooed firefighter, a child with a disability, and an ordinary life in suburban Boston. None of these met what Barbara called the Griffith family standards. "Is something wrong?" Jason asked with concern. "Just the usual update from Mother," Melissa answered with a smile. "Bragging about Caitlin." "I'd like to meet her," Jason said. "After all, she's Michael's only aunt." Melissa nodded, but she had mixed feelings inside. The last time she had met her sister was 2 years ago, and it had been a brief encounter in a cold atmosphere. Her sister clearly didn't know how to interact with Michael and grimaced every time she saw Jason's tattoos. From the kitchen window, the morning sun shone through. In the light, she could see Jason and Michael signing to each other as they pointed at birds in the garden. Melissa felt a warmth in her chest. This house was where she belonged. Even if her family didn't understand, there was true love here. The phone rang, and Melissa picked up the receiver. "Melissa." It was her sister's voice, unusually excited. "I have important news." "Caitlin? What is it?" "I'm engaged. To David Foster. He's the most promising young lawyer in Boston. I've already told Mom." She was jumping with joy. Melissa was momentarily speechless. Congratulations, Kate. That's wonderful. The wedding is in May. At the Boston Harbor Hotel. Of course, you and your family are invited. After hanging up, Melissa stood by the window. While sincerely wishing for her sister's happiness, a slight unease crossed her mind. Still, the prospect of being included in the family circle after a long time brightened her heart. That evening, Melissa told Jason and Michael about Caitlin's wedding. Michael's eyes sparkled as he signed, "I want to wear a new suit." Jason joked, "I guess I'll need to buy a proper tie." Melissa smiled at them. She secretly hoped that this day would help bridge the gap she had felt with her family for so many years. The wedding invitation arrived with a beautiful gold trim 2 weeks later. Melissa took the card and traced the embossed letters with her finger. "Please attend the wedding of Caitlin Griffith and David Foster." It's a beautiful invitation, Melissa showed it to Michael, who was reading a picture book in the living room. "It's your aunt's wedding. We'll all go together." Michael stood up excitedly and signed, "Will I wear a tie?" Melissa nodded with a smile and replied, "Yes, we'll go buy a new suit tomorrow." Seeing her son's pure joy strengthened her hope that this might be an opportunity to bridge the family divide. That evening, Caitlin called. Her voice sounded tense. "Melissa, I need to talk to you. Can we meet for lunch tomorrow at Café Montmartre in Boston?" The next day, Melissa entered the upscale cafe in Boston's Back Bay district. In the elegant interior, Caitlin was waiting at a window table. As usual, she wore a perfect blouse with a pearl necklace, her blonde hair meticulously styled. "It's been a while," Melissa lightly embraced her sister. She would have liked to hug her more tightly, but she knew Caitlin didn't prefer that. "Sit down," Caitlin said. There was a hint of discomfort in her expression. "I wanted to talk to you a bit about David." After the waiter brought coffee, Caitlin finally got to the point. David's family is very traditional. His father is the president of the Boston Bar Association, and his mother is a trustee of the Arts Association. Melissa nodded quietly. "That sounds impressive." So, Caitlin paused as if choosing her words carefully. "The wedding will be extremely formal and elegant. Many of David's family friends and important figures from the legal world will be attending." Melissa tilted her head, not understanding what her sister was getting at. "And that's a problem?" Caitlin stared at her coffee cup as she spoke. "We will be seen as a family. That means impressions matter." "Impressions?" "Jason's tattoos cannot be shown to David's relatives," Caitlin blurted out. "And Michael's sign language would disrupt the atmosphere of the ceremony." Melissa couldn't believe her ears. "What? What are you saying?" "Don't misunderstand," Caitlin tried to adjust her tone. "I love you all. But this day is a once-in-a-lifetime special occasion. Everything needs to be perfect." Melissa's cheeks burned. "Are you saying my family isn't acceptable?" "That's not what Caitlin began, but quickly changed her expression. "This isn't about you, it's about my special day. I need you to understand." Melissa was at a loss for words. She left with a painful feeling in her heart. On her way home, Melissa called her mother to explain the situation. But Barbara's reaction was as expected. "Caitlin is right. Jason's appearance is certainly an issue. And children with disabilities should not draw attention at such events." "Mom." Melissa's voice trembled. "Melissa, you always want to do things differently. But this time, think about Caitlin. You understand how important this marriage is for her, don't you?" Melissa returned home fighting back tears, where Jason and Michael warmly welcomed her. "What's wrong?" Jason asked with concern, seeing his wife's expression. Melissa tried to explain but stumbled over her words. Just then, the phone rang. It was Barbara. Melissa put it on speakerphone with a tired expression. "Have you reconsidered?" Barbara's voice filled the room. Reconsidered what? About Caitlin's wedding. I'll explain about you to David's family. But there are some conditions. Barbara's voice sounded cold. Please, don't come to the wedding. Melissa gasped. Jason took her hand. Your husband has tattoos, right? I can't introduce him to our relatives. Barbara continued. And, don't bring that deaf child. If he has a disability, keep it hidden forever. Melissa hung up with trembling hands, desperately holding back tears. Silence filled the room. Michael looked anxious, seeing his parents' expressions. What's wrong? He signed. Jason gently embraced his wife and answered his son in sign language, it's okay. Mom is just a little sad. That night, after putting their child to bed, Melissa and Jason had a heart-to-heart conversation in the living room. You don't have to go, Jason said. Thank you for teaching us what a real family is. To Michael and me, you are the most important person in the world. Melissa cried in Jason's arms. She was glad she had chosen this man who had tattoos, was a firefighter, and loved Michael unconditionally. The next morning, Melissa sent a short message to Caitlin. Kate, I won't be able to attend your wedding. I would like you to respect our family as we are this time. I wish you happiness. After pressing the send button, Melissa stood by the window, looking out at the world. The soft spring sunlight illuminated her face through the curtains. In the depths of her wounded heart, she contemplated the true meaning of family. The wedding day arrived with the bright May sunshine. Melissa had been up since early morning, preparing for a picnic. In the kitchen, Michael was helping make sandwiches. This one is for Dad, this one for Mom, and this one for me, he signed happily. The small sandwiches for the family of 3 were cut into different shapes. From the living room, Jason called out as he prepared blankets and a frisbee, the weather forecast is perfect. A great day for a picnic at Blue Hills. Melissa smiled, but in the back of her mind, she was still thinking about her sister's wedding. By now, Caitlin would be dressed in her dream wedding gown, experiencing the most important day of her life. Trying to shake off her complex emotions, she told herself, let's enjoy today. Just as they finished preparing for the picnic, Melissa's cell phone rang. Caitlin's name was displayed on the screen. For a moment, she considered ignoring it, but thinking it might be something important, she answered. Kate? Aren't you in the middle of your ceremony? What she heard from the other end was crying. Melissa. Caitlin's voice was trembling. Please, please, come right away. Melissa felt a chill run down her spine. What's wrong? What happened? David, his speech, everything. I was wrong. Caitlin stumbled over her words. Please. I want to see you all. Calm down, Kate. What happened? Melissa tried to maintain her composure. There's no time to explain. Boston Harbor Hotel, Grand Ballroom. Right now. The call ended. Melissa looked at Jason with a confused expression. That was Caitlin. Something terrible seems to have happened. What do you want to do? Jason asked seriously. Melissa took a deep breath. I wonder if we should go, but considering what happened. Let's go, Jason answered immediately. Your sister's in trouble, right? Michael, sensing the situation, signed let's go. The 3 of them quickly changed and got into the car. Melissa had no time to dress up, so she wore a simple dress with a cardigan. Jason wore a long-sleeved shirt to hide his tattoos. Michael remained in the button-down shirt and chino pants he had been wearing since morning. I wonder what happened, Melissa was deep in thought in the car. What could David's speech that Caitlin mentioned have been? The Boston Harbor Hotel was one of the most prestigious in the city. Passing through the grand entrance with luxurious chandeliers and marble floors, they hurried to the grand ballroom. Caitlin was standing in the lobby in her wedding dress, her makeup smudged. Her eyes were red, clearly having cried. As soon as she saw them, she rushed over. "You came," Caitlin said tearfully. Surprisingly, she knelt down in front of Michael and, though awkwardly, signed "I'm sorry." "What happened?" Melissa asked. "Come in," Caitlin led them into the venue. "David will explain." Entering the grand ballroom, they saw hundreds of guests sitting quietly, the ceremony seemingly paused. At the front on a platform stood the groom, David Foster, in a tuxedo. He was tall with refined features, the typical appearance of a Boston elite. Seeing them enter, David's expression showed relief. A murmur arose from the audience. Barbara also turned from the front row and stared at Melissa with a surprised expression. David took the microphone and said, "Excuse me. Let me continue. I was just speaking about what a true family means." His voice resonated through the hall. "The woman I am about to marry, Caitlin Griffith, has a sister, Melissa Johnson, and her husband Jason and their son Michael." Melissa was speechless. David smiled at them and continued. "I learned just before the ceremony that they were not going to be here today. And when I found out the reason, I felt deeply saddened." Silence spread through the venue. "I was told that Jason's tattoos and Michael's hearing impairment were the reason. But, ladies and gentlemen, I must confess something here." David took a deep breath. "I have a brother, Thomas, who has a hearing impairment." Barbara could be heard gasping. Melissa too widened her eyes in surprise. "As a lawyer, and as a human being, I have always fought against discrimination. In particular, supporting the hearing impaired has been one of my life's missions. My brother is one of the most important people in my life, and his disability is nothing to hide or be ashamed of." David slowly lowered the microphone and fluently signed, "A true family means accepting and supporting each other." Seeing this sign language, Michael's eyes lit up. "And a word about tattoos. My father, Edward Foster, was also in the Marine Corps when he was young. Many of his comrades proudly wear tattoos. Judging people by their appearance is what we should most avoid." Barbara blushed and seemed to shrink in her seat. "The bonds of family are about understanding and acceptance, not discrimination or exclusion. I deeply regret that these principles were not upheld in the preparations for today's ceremony." David looked at Caitlin. She nodded slightly through her tears. "Melissa, Jason, and Michael, I am truly grateful that you have come here today. You represent the kind of family I seek." Applause erupted from the audience. Many guests stood up to show their respect. Melissa couldn't hold back her tears. Caitlin rushed to Melissa and hugged her. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." She apologized through her tears. "I told David everything last night. He was angry and said, if we can't invite the real family, then the wedding has no meaning." "But why did you call us?" Melissa asked. David suddenly started a speech in the middle of the ceremony. Caitlin explained. "He began talking about the meaning of true family, and then said my actions were wrong. I felt ashamed at that moment, but at the same time, I understood he was right. That's why I called you." Melissa looked at her sister. In Caitlin's eyes floated genuine regret and love. She felt as if the distance she had felt for years was gradually closing. David came down from the platform and approached them. He extended his hand to Jason and said, "It's an honor to meet you." Then he turned to Michael and fluently signed, "Hello, I'm David. I'm glad to meet you." Michael happily signed back, "My name is Michael." "Congratulations." Barbara approached timidly. Her expression was a mixture of embarrassment and confusion. "Melissa. Seeing her mother at a loss for words, Melissa felt her vulnerability for the first time. "It's okay, Mom," Melissa said. "I just want you to remember today." The ceremony resumed. Melissa's family was guided to sit in the front row, where they witnessed Caitlin and David's vows of love. During the ceremony, David called in a sign language interpreter and conveyed his vows in sign language as well. holding her husband's hand, Melissa felt that today would be a new beginning. Wounds of many years wouldn't heal in a day. But today's events had taught everyone the true meaning of family. When Michael held Melissa's hand with his small hands, she smiled quietly. After the main ceremony ended, the reception began. Live music played in the hall, and champagne glasses sparkled. Despite the sudden invitation, Melissa's family was warmly welcomed by the guests. Michael's eyes sparkled at the unusual environment, looking with interest at the elaborate cakes on the dessert table. Melissa held her glass, contemplating the events of the past few hours. From the sudden phone call to David's moving speech and the reconciliation with her sister, the developments seemed like something out of a movie, and she herself was losing her sense of reality. "It was a wonderful ceremony," said Jason, standing next to her. Despite not being appropriately dressed, he blended into the atmosphere with his natural demeanor. He wore a long-sleeved shirt, but a small part of his tattoo was visible from his right wrist. "Yes, it really was." Melissa smiled. An unexpected turn of events. Just then, a gentleman approached them. A man in his late 60s with an imposing physique, he was Edward Foster, David's father. His posture conveyed years of leadership experience. "We finally meet, Melissa," Edward greeted with a warm smile. "I've heard from my son. I understand you're a wonderful educator." Melissa answered humbly, "It's an honor." Edward turned to Jason, "And you must be Jason. I hear you're a firefighter," and extended his hand. When they shook hands, Edward's eyes lingered on the part of the tattoo visible on Jason's wrist. His expression changed. "Is that?" Edward faltered. Jason awkwardly tried to pull his sleeve down further, but Edward politely asked, "If you don't mind, could I see it?" After a moment's hesitation, Jason slowly rolled up his left sleeve. The entire tattoo with intertwined flower and flame motifs was revealed. Beneath it were the words "honor" and "service." Seeing this, Edward suddenly saluted. "That's a 3rd Marine Division tattoo," his voice was filled with respect. "You served." People around them started to pay attention to their conversation. "Yes, I participated in the Second Battle of Fallujah during the Iraq War," Jason answered quietly. "Which unit?" "Charlie Company, sir." Edward's eyes lit up. "Do you know my son, Michael Foster?" "He was also in Charlie Company." Jason was momentarily speechless. "Lieutenant Mike Foster, he was my commanding officer." "I see." Edward couldn't contain his emotions. Michael was wounded in Charlie Company and returned home. He always talked about a brave soldier who rescued him. Who, regardless of danger, pushed forward through enemy fire. Jason shrugged. "I just did what needed to be done." David, overhearing the conversation, approached. "What's happening, Dad?" "This young man, Jason, is the hero who saved your brother on the battlefield." Edward explained excitedly. "Mike survived because of him." David looked at Jason with a surprised expression. "I've heard that story from my brother many times. He says he can never forget that moment." Barbara and Caitlin approached. They had heard the conversation and were blushing. Why wasn't this hero invited to the ceremony? Edward expressed his anger. Barbara tried to make excuses but stumbled over her words. "We didn't know." To judge someone solely by their tattoos, Edward's voice was stern. "For us, a Marine Corps tattoo is a mark of honor." Caitlin bowed her head in shame. "I've done something terrible." Melissa was stunned by this development. She looked toward her husband. Jason mouthed, "I'll tell you later." He had rarely talked about his battlefield experiences because they had been a heavy trauma for him. Edward noticed Michael and asked, "This is your son, right?" He smiled warmly and extended his hand. Michael was a bit nervous about the serious adult conversation but shook the offered hand. "Actually, I'd like to introduce you to my other son, Thomas," Edward said. He pointed to a corner of the venue where a young man was standing. In his mid-20s, he had gentle features similar to David's. He approached at Edward's signal. "This is Thomas, David's brother and my youngest son," Edward said proudly. When Thomas noticed Michael, he signed, "Nice to meet you." Michael's eyes lit up. He signed back, "Nice to meet you, I'm Michael." Thomas has been deaf since birth, Edward explained. However, he is now studying architecture at Boston University. His disability doesn't limit his potential, rather, it has given him a unique perspective. Barbara stood speechless, seeming deeply shaken in her values. Actually, David continued, in the support center for the hearing impaired that we plan to be involved with, we're also planning to collaborate with veterans like Jason. There are similarities between the PTSD experienced by those returning from battlefields and the social isolation felt by the hearing impaired. Jason nodded. I've also started disaster prevention education for children with disabilities at the fire station. Because of Michael. As the conversation continued, Melissa reflected on this miraculous coincidence. Her husband was the hero who had saved the life of her future brother-in-law. And David's family was connected to hers in an unexpected way. As the party progressed, what was once considered a shame now transformed into a family pride. Barbara quietly wiped away tears as she watched Michael and Thomas behaving like grandchildren. Melissa took Jason's hand and whispered, "You never told me." Jason smiled. "The past is the past. What matters is this moment, today." Around them, two families were melding together, forming new bonds. The Christmas lights warmly illuminated Melissa's house on a December night. A year after the wedding, a large fir tree was decorated in the living room, with family gathered around it. Jason was giving Michael a piggyback ride to help him place a star at the top of the tree, prompting applause from the gathered family. "It's beautiful," Barbara said. She sat in a chair and signed to Michael, "Wonderful." For a year, she had been diligently learning sign language. Though still awkward, she seemed to enjoy conversing with her grandson. In front of the living room fireplace sat David and Caitlin, Thomas, and Mr. and Mrs. Edward. David's brother Michael couldn't attend due to an overseas business trip, but he had sent a video message. The room was filled with warm conversation and laughter. In the kitchen, Melissa and Caitlin were preparing dinner. Their relationship had changed significantly over the year. "I still can't believe it," Caitlin said as she cut an apple pie. "How arrogant I was this time last year." "What's important is not the past, but the present," Melissa gently replied. Barbara entered the kitchen. Her expression had a softness that she had never shown before. "Is there anything I can help with?" Melissa smiled. "Thank you, Mom." Barbara looked at her two daughters and sighed. "It's hard to admit past mistakes. But I'm truly ashamed of myself for judging people by their appearance or disability." Tears welled up in her eyes. "I'm sorry I hurt you." Melissa approached her mother and hugged her. "It's okay. We're family." Returning to the living room, David was teaching Michael and Thomas how to use a new tablet. A sign language learning app was displayed on the screen. The Support Center for Children with Hearing Impairments is set to open next month, David reported to Melissa. Kate arranged all the legal matters. Caitlin shrugged bashfully. "Many children will benefit. Especially talented kids like Michael." Edward was engrossed in conversation with Jason by the window. "Your lecture at the Veterans Association was a great success. Many young people were impressed by your approach to dealing with PTSD." Jason smiled. "Being able to reunite with Lieutenant Mike, whom I helped back then, was truly a miracle." As she was leaving, Barbara kissed Michael's cheek. "Let's go to the museum together next week," she promised in both sign language and words. Thomas signed to Michael, "Enjoy Christmas," and the two exchanged a firm handshake. After the family had left, Melissa stood in the living room, watching the snow begin to fall through the window. Jason put his arm around her shoulder, and Michael stood between them. "Happy?" Jason asked. Melissa took a deep breath and looked around at her family. "Very." She was reflecting. A year ago, she had been rejected by her family and carried deep wounds in her heart. But now, her heart was filled with peace. David's speech about the essence of family being not about differences in appearance or ability, but about accepting and supporting each other, was now etched in everyone's hearts. Michael looked up at his parents with a smile and signed, "Love, family." As Melissa hugged her son, she quietly savored the realization that a true family is bound not just by blood, but by heart.